Hi, and thank you for joining me here on the Oikos Family Podcast. I'm Sonja Wood, and this is Season 2, Episode 30. And today's short story that I'm sharing with you from Tiger and Tom is all about having fun in a different kind of a way. Because the story is about, I'm going to leave the story here to play for you, so I won't give too much about the story now, because it'll be nice just to listen to it. It was narrated by our son James, and it comes out of the Tiger and Tom series. Well, it's a book called Tiger and Tom and Other Short Stories for Boys. And I actually shared in episode 29 of this podcast series all about the history of these books and where they came from, and that it was a series of books that were found, stories that were found in orphanages across the country, and they were written in the 1800s, so on and so forth. So that is all. There's more about that in episode 29. But today's story is all about some boys that were thinking about doing something mischievous that wasn't going to be very kind to somebody else, and they thought that would be fun. But one of the boys in the group had a better idea and said, let's rather do this other thing. As I said, I'm trying to not give the story away, but anyway, to do this other thing that actually would be a kindness to somebody else. And let's see what kind of fun we can have while doing that. And I love this story because I just think it is such a valuable lesson. And you might just find it really helpful to you when it comes to wanting to teach your children about this particular principle, this life lesson. And as I mentioned in previous podcasts, it's sometimes what I used to do with these short stories when our children were growing up, is I would just read the story myself and then tell them about it. In other instances, I would read the story out loud from the book. And this particular one, I remember reading aloud a few times, not just to my children, when other children would come and spend some time with us, the cousins and stuff. This would be a story that I would choose to read to them. And in this instance, it's Jamie going to be reading the story because he actually narrated the Tiger and Tom and Other Short Stories for Boys book, and I narrated the King's Daughter one. So if you want the whole audiobook or the whole ebook, audiobooks, wherever you find audiobooks, this book is available to be able to purchase because it's been narrated and it's out there. So you can get it if you would like, wherever you get your audiobooks or wherever audiobooks are sold. Just to let you know that we will be sharing 10 out of these books, or 10 or more, however many. We're already on episode 30 of this series. So we'll keep sharing them, but there's so many that it might be a nice book for you to have. You might decide that you would like to always have these stories available. So that's that, if you want to do that. But for now, this story, The Best Fun, is yet another really valuable life lesson. I think it is, and I hope you do too. So here it is, The Best Fun. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for listening and joining me today in today's podcast. Bye for now.
The Best Fun. Now, boys, I'll tell you how we can have some fun, said Fred Blake to his companions, who had assembled on a beautiful moonlit evening for sliding, snowballing, and fun generally. How? Where? What is it? Asked several eager voices together. I heard Widow Moore tell a man a little while ago, replied Fred, that she would go to sit up with a sick child tonight. She said she would be there about 8 o'clock. Now, as soon as she is gone, let's make a big snowman on her doorstep, so that when she comes home, she cannot get in without first knocking him down. Capital! Shouted several of the boys. See here, said Charlie Neal. I'll tell you the best fun. What is it? Again inquired several at once. Wait a while, said Charlie. Who has a wood saw? I have. So have I, answered 3 of the boys. But what in the world do you want a wood saw for? You shall see, replied Charlie. It is almost 8 o'clock now, so go and get your saws. You, Fred and Nathan, get each an axe, and I will get a shovel. Let us all be back here in 15 minutes, and then I'll show you the fun." The boys separated to go on their several errands, each wondering what the fun could be, and what possible use could be made of wood saws and axes in their play. But Charlie was not only a great favorite with them all, but also an acknowledged leader, and they fully believed in him and his promise. Anxious to know what the fun was which Charlie had for them, they made haste, and were soon on hand with their saws, axes, and shovels. "Now," said Charlie, "Mrs. Moore is gone, for I met her when I was coming back, so let's be off at once." "But what are you going to do?" inquired several impatient members of the party. "You shall see directly," replied the leader, as they approached the humble home of Mrs. Moore. "Now, boys," said Charlie, "you see that pile of wood? A man hauled it here this afternoon, and I heard Mrs. Moore tell him that unless she got someone to saw it tonight, she would have nothing to make a fire with in the morning. Now, we can saw and split that pile of wood just about as easy as we could build a great snowman, and when Mrs. Moore comes home from her watching, she will be fully as much surprised to find her wood sawed as she would be to find a snowman at her doorstep, and a great deal more pleasantly, too. What say you? Will you do it?" One or two of the boys demurred at first, but the majority were in favor of Charlie's project, so all finally joined in and went to work with a will. "I'll go round to the back of the shed," said Charlie, "and crawl through the window and unfasten the door. Then we'll take turns sawing, splitting, and carrying in the wood. And I'll want to pile it up nicely, and to shovel all the snow away from the door, and make a good wide path, too, from the door to the street. What fun it will be when she comes home and sees it!" The boys began to appreciate the fun, for they felt that they were doing a good deed, and experienced the satisfaction which always results from well-doing. And it was not a long, wearisome job for 7 robust and healthy boys to saw, split, and pile up the poor widow's half-cord of wood, and to shovel a good path. When it was done, so great was their pleasure that one of the boys, who objected to the work at first, proposed that they should go to a neighboring carpenter's shop, where plenty of shavings could be had for the carrying away, and each bring an armful of kindling wood. This they did, and afterward hurried home, all of them more than satisfied with the fun of the winter evening. The next morning, when Mrs. Moore came home, weary from watching by the sick bed, and saw what was done, she was very much surprised. When she was told who had done it by a neighbor who had witnessed the kindly deed, her fervent prayer, "God bless the boys," was of itself an abundant reward for their labors. Boys and girls, the best fun is always found in doing something that is kind and useful. If you doubt it in the least, just try it for yourselves, and you will be convinced.